Sergeant at Arms, please secure the doors. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded? Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Before we do that, trying to get to work too early today. This morning, we are pleased to have the Reverend Howard Travers of New Life with a Y, L-Y-F-E, Church, from Salisbury, Maryland, guest of the distinguished senator from District 37. Members, please rise for the invocation.
Would you join me as we pray? Creator and sustainer, we pause today to thank you. We thank you for this new day and for your mercies renewed to us today. We thank you for your many blessings, as unworthy as we are. In all our humanity and imperfection, we come today seeking your grace, seeking your mercy, seeking your forgiveness. For we have left undone those things which we ought to have done, and we have done those things which we ought not to have done. Forgive us if we have been unmindful of your great providence, cold in our love, callous in our attitude toward others, or insensitive to the claims of your Spirit. Forgive us for our love of ease, for our devotion to things, for our absorption with pleasure, and for our, at times, unbridled pursuit of gains. Deliver us from all falsehood and idolatry. Deliver us from all covetousness and ruthless competition. Save us from racial antagonism, from self-serving partisanship, from living to ourselves alone, and from trusting solely in our own strength apart from you. May new life and may new spirit be born in our great state and in this nation, shaping our conduct and directing our destiny. Make us a new people for these new times. By your higher wisdom, guide us that we may seek to serve your great purposes. Help us not only to pray for, but to believe in your great faithfulness and your abounding forgiveness, and in the resurrection of a cleansed and renewed state and nation. We pray these things. Hear us, O Lord. Amen.
Chair recognizes Senator from District 37.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, Reverend Travers has served actually of the Ayers United Methodist Church and the Rockawakan United Methodist Church, but as was indicated, he now has an independent faith community called New Life Church. He specializes in bereavement services and has been so active and instrumental in leadership of faith communities up and down the Eastern Shore. So he has really led his people well, and I'm delighted that he has been with us today. Move to journalize Reverend Travers' prayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, we will certainly journalize Reverend Travers' wonderful invocation this morning. So we appreciate you inviting him to join us today. All right, has everyone recorded their presence in the chamber? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 44 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Senators, first and foremost, I want to thank you all for your understanding and focus on public health. As we can see with the 44 members that are here today, those who are absent are wholly unrelated to any testing issues, are separate issues entirely. But yesterday there was a lot of buzz about a positive rapid test on campus. and the related quarantining that was required as part of our process. These were the protocols that we put in place at the beginning, that we worked with all of you on to make sure that this session could function. And so yesterday was the first example of one of the harder, impacts that we anticipated could happen. And as I said yesterday, and want to reiterate today, we are going to continue to default towards protecting health and safety. And so this work that we do in this body is unbelievably important, but it is not worth lives. And so we are going to default on making sure that any risks that can be mitigated, we will mitigate. I do want to correct the record. I actually said it was 80% certainty on the testing. It is actually it's a 14% error rate, so 14% false positives on our rapid tests. And so it's even better than I actually expected after having conversations with the Department of Health yesterday. And if you think about the number of days that we've been in session, I think we're at about 42 or so. These were some of our first instances where we had individuals on campus test positive with the rapid test and PCR subsequently come back negative. That is the much better side. We'd much rather that than the alternative. Of course, what I suspect is my office will do whatever we can. All of these records are health records, and so we are going to avoid there were a lot of efforts to try and ask who, what, where, when. To be very clear, when it comes to these issues, we will not be identifying members of the staff, members, or anyone else a specific result one way or the other. And so I just want to appreciate all of the members for taking these precautions so seriously. We dodged a bullet, fortunately, and everybody, we're here today and able to get to the work of the body with 46 members. With that, let's see, are there any other announcements? Before we get into... Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from District 30.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, it's good to be back. Thank you, Mr. President, for those kind words, and thank you for checking in on us all day throughout the day, and many of our colleagues for doing that as well. But today I rise because it is Maryland Independent Higher Education Day here in Annapolis. It feels a little different this year without students actually down to advocate to us, but I'm sure many of us have meetings with the students throughout our district. There'll be 150 students representing Maryland's 13 state-aided college and university members of the Maryland Independent College and University Association, MICUA, to hold many meetings with us. I'm proud to host one of those schools, St. John's, just across the street here in Annapolis, and please join me in virtually welcoming these students to Annapolis. Thank you, colleague.
Thank you, Senator, and I had the opportunity to speak to a number of the students virtually today, and we are pleased that they are joining us virtually this morning. Any other announcements? Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from District 6.
Mr. President, if I could just compliment you, if I could, for just one moment. I see that you are out there and you are the avenue for the opportunity to communicate with the media. And I appreciate that. And more than anything, I look to you as a part of Minority Party to, first of all, to thank you and to let people know how responsible we have been in the Senate. So first of all, I want to thank you for that. And I want to continue to say, keep on doing that, what you're doing. I appreciate that, and I know the Senate does too. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Well, thank you, Senator. I appreciate those remarks. Teamwork makes the dream work. We're all in this together. And so appreciate that, and it is all of us as one this work is important. People in Maryland are expecting us to get stuff done, and so just thank you for those kind remarks. Any further announcements before we get to the work? If not, so be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. We've got one Senate bill. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 947, Senator Hershey, Labor and Employment, General Contractor, Liability, Applicability, Rules.
All right, we still have some Senate bond initiatives. This is Calendar 20. Clerk will read the bond initiatives.
Senator Peters, Manor House Annex. Senator Peters, Manor House.
We're pleased that the Capital Committee Chair has some priority projects, LBIs in today. Next, we've got the first reading House bills. This is calendar number 5. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 38, Delegate Carey, State Government, Department of Information Technology, Cybersecurity, EHE.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. Let's start off with special orders while we have a full contingent today. We've got some third readers. Let's get those out of the way while we're just on a quorum call. So let's do special order calendar number 17. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 278, Senator Kagan, State Department of Education and Maryland Department of Health, Maryland School-Based Health Center Standards, Telehealth. This is an emergency bill.
Senate Bill 278 is on third reader for final passage. This is an emergency bill. The Chair recognizes the Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just going to talk for about 3 or 4 minutes and I'll sit down. It's been a busy session. And it's challenging with all the testimony that's written. We only can have 4 people testify favor or against. And it takes time to go back and listen to or read the opposition and then reach out to the departments and get the information. So I thank you for the courtesy of allowing me to do that. So what this bill does, let's just cut to the chase. Schools are already able to receive telehealth for students. They can already get that. That's in current law. This bill simply removes state approval of telehealth and gives it to the locals. And there are 86 health centers that we have in our state, working very fine. Those are the in-person, they've been approved. And so what happens is if they want to get telehealth in it, they have to go through another approval for that. The reason was given for this bill that things were not happening quick enough and the process was onerous. So let me just share what the current process is. The Department of Health has a checklist to verify quality and safety for our students. The locals fill out that checklist, and then the department sets up a virtual meeting to go over the checklist, address any deficiencies, and then they approve it. So I'm not so sure what part of the checklist is onerous, as it was never mentioned in the hearing. If the floor leader would like to give us specifics on the checklist, what was onerous, I'd be glad to hear that. And I read the telehealth section in law that we passed, and there's no requirements of approving telehealth under that part of the section in code, which this is referencing. But the department believes that it is absolutely essential that they play a part in this approval process for the safety of our students. In fact, in their written testimony, I'll just share a little of their serious concerns. The Department of Health said, and I quote, "The provisions of this bill would make Department of Health and Department of Education unable to perform the duties designed to ensure quality telehealth services. The quality of care delivered to Maryland's student may be compromised." That's a very serious warning. And yesterday I asked about what would the new process look like at the local level. And the floor leader couldn't give us any specifics and actually said there wasn't any process. And then I realized that local jurisdictions could have little or no approval process under this legislation. Maybe that was their intention, maybe it wasn't. That would give us quick access, there's no doubt, but at what expense? The Department of Health has some of the best medical experts in our state, and we rely on them to provide quality and safety for our students in the current process. God forbid something would happen to one of our students, and we would come back and say we took away the approval process to ensure the quality and safety for our students. Additionally, this bill creates a double standard. For those 86 schools that are currently in place and approved, that goes through the state approval process. The process this bill would put in would create a double standard by saying, if you want to add telehealth, that doesn't go through the state anymore, that goes through the locals. So on one hand, you have the state approving the initial in-person, but for some reason, telehealth would not go through the state. Now, I understand some of the problem. The floor leader said she was very frustrated, went to the Department of Education and said, we want to get this quicker. the response she got back was, "We don't do that, go to the superintendent." And in fact, they were correct, because it's the Department of Health that approves these, not the Department of Education. And it could have been communicated better by the Department of Education, because the locals are involved, but they probably should have said, go to Department of Health instead of the superintendent. So I would have been frustrated as well, but that's a simple communication fix. So I understand where she came on that. And regarding the 13 applications from Montgomery County, the way they did that is they put one block request in, all 13 in one request, one application. And I don't know the process. Maybe the floor leader does on that. But it might be one or two of those 13 schools had a problem, and they couldn't approve that one application until they resolved all those minor ones in the other school. Maybe a process improvement would be they could approve one at a time, even when there is a block grant request. I think we should sit down with the Department of Health and discuss these issues. And actually, I think this is a really good case where we as a committee could write a committee letter and say, Department of Health, sit down with the superintendents, see where the problem is, see where they're saying it's onerous, and see if we can improve that process. Or maybe they would come back and say, we really need to do this for the quality and safety of our children. And they could have that discussion. But what this bill does, it says, let's not try to fix the policies that have been placed for decades, as the floor leader said. Let's just completely abandon that and give it to the locals, where they could have no approval or some approval process, different in all 24 jurisdictions. I've been assured the department is willing to talk with the superintendents. I just think this is a major shift in policy when we didn't even go to the right department to try to get it resolved. And I think it would make a lot of senators more comfortable if we could just write a letter and have them sit down and discuss this. And therefore, I won't be voting green on this.
Thank you, Senator. All right. Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a great deal of respect for the new minority leader. I think he's smart and passionate about making good policy. And I was reflecting on his testimony last night and why it was he was so confused and why it was he was sharing such inaccurate information. And I decided that it was probably based on the letter that I got from the superintendent of our State Department of Education, or one very similar to it. The senator just said that maybe we just ought to write a letter to Dr. Salmon. Well, I did that. It's dated June 3rd, 2020. I did that. I asked for her help in making sure that our students in low-income areas and rural areas who depend on health care from school-based health centers could have access. And her response on June 5th, which was the date that I asked for an urgent emergency response, and she did do that, said, no, it's the locals. Your local superintendent already has that authority. So I contacted my superintendent, who contacted their lawyer, who then contacted their colleagues at PSAM, the Public School Superintendents Association of Maryland. And they said, no, we don't have that authority. And so then there has been a stalemate since last March, and certainly since these June letters, this exchange with Dr. Salmon. And in the meantime, we have kids who have not had access to health care, to primary care, behavioral care, and dental care, that they have no other options. So the senator talked about the checklist being onerous. I read the URL. I told you how complicated it was. I also mentioned that Howard County's process took over a year, that Wicomico County was rejected, that others are pending. We need to take action. So how many kids are affected? How many kids are doing without? Well, we don't really know that. There's a 2020 annual report of the Maryland Council on the Advancement of School-Based Health Centers, and it said, quote, complete SBHC, school-based health centers, data for the 2018 to 2019, and the 2019 to 2020 school years are not yet available due to delays associated with the survey redesign. 2 years ago, before COVID, we don't have the data. You know what data is available? On MSDA's website, if you look, most of the information is from 2007 to 2008. How on earth is our state Department of Education supposed to be managing this healthcare system for these most vulnerable kids? So I don't want to take a lot of time. I do want to correct something else that the senator said. The State Department of Education and the State Department of Health, if they're so worried about this legislation, you would think that they would have come in guns blazing, dead set against this bill. You know what they submitted? No position. No position. We need to be able to move this forward and this bill so that we can provide emergency health care for our kids. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes Senator from District 9.
I just had a question for the floor leader, Mr. President.
Will the floor leader yield? Appears so. Senator may proceed.
Senator, we've been going on for so long about this bill. I just wonder if we could come back to the essence of it. Isn't it to provide telehealth for school students the way we do for so many other providers?
That's exactly right. So last year we passed an emergency bill that basically allowed telehealth for essentially these parents. And many of us, and certainly thousands of our constituents, have taken advantage of the opportunity to not need to go into a hospital, to not need to go into a clinic, not to endanger their own health, but to connect with a healthcare provider, a certified healthcare provider, by video, by phone, even in asynchronous, not in the same time, but through email. That has made all of our lives easier, quicker, more convenient, and I think we've all started to rely on it. Why can't our most needy students do the same? Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Any senators who have not yet spoken wish to speak? If not, Chair recognizes the Minority Leader.
Thank you, and I appreciate the comments of the floor leader. But in her explanation, it was very evident what she said. She wrote a letter to the Department of Education. She was directed to a certain place, to the locals, and she was frustrated. And we have the legislation before us. That's not the problem. The problem is she was talking to the wrong department. The Department of Health is the one that approves. So if I go to the Department of Natural Resources and ask something about another department, of course you're going to get frustrated. And I agree there's probably a communication problem there. But that can be fixed without legislation. And my good senator, I would be frustrated as well. So I understand that. The second thing is the senator from Howard County asked, what's the essence of this bill? Isn't it to get telehealth to our students? Current law already allows students to get telehealth. I think, matter of fact, the department said there's been over 3,000 interactions so far with telehealth. So that's already current law. The essence of this bill is, do we take away the protections that the Department of Health is putting in and let the locals either decide not to even have an approval process or put in whatever they want? And the floor leader said, well, one application got denied. Great. We have a protection in there that they thought, as the medical experts, something was not right and they should fix it. Under this bill, they would probably be allowed to be approved without anything. So we have the safeguards in place. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be able to try to get it quicker or try to identify something that's onerous. But that's not what this bill is doing. This is just completely replacing the process and saying the Department of Health and the Department of Education cannot do this. They're prohibited from doing this. It's actually, look in the fiscal note, it actually says that. So, again, I won't be voting for. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes Senator from District 11.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I want to echo and follow up on the comments made by my colleague from Howard County. Since the brouhaha around this bill, I dug into what was happening in my county and found out that there was 13 school-based health centers that have not been able to get telehealth for the students in those. One of them is in my district. There are 5 schools in District 6, 3 in District 12, 1 in District 7, 1 in 44B, and 1 in District 8. These are students in the midst of COVID, in the midst of a public health pandemic, that are not able to get the kinds of services they would be able to get if they were in school. And somehow our pediatricians, our hospitals have been able to pivot quite smoothly to telehealth. I think our students and our schools deserve the same. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, the chair recognizes the minority leader.
And hopefully this will be a last. I don't want to drag this on, but the senator from Baltimore County just spoke. If I could just ask her one quick question in regards to her comments.
Will the senator yield to a question? Senator may proceed.
Sure.
Yes, and look, I want telehealth in all 86 of these. So my one question to you is, you said that they didn't have it and you want them to have it. Do you know if any of your health school in Baltimore County have applied to have telehealth?
I am told that they attempted to, but were too confused about the process.
So they have not submitted one? Okay, thank you.
All right. Senate Bill 278 is on third reader for final passage. If there's no further discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of Budget and Tax.
Thank you. I'd like to explain my vote. As all of us, we've followed the details of this issue over about 3 weeks. And the minority leader and the vice chair of the committee have done a terrific job of laying out the details. The minority leader on a different bill last week talked about philosophical differences. This bill is part of the Democratic leadership's package for dealing with COVID and dealing with the post-COVID environment. This is a perfect example of a proposal just like President Biden's to build back better. Not to go back to the way it was, but to get better. This is about expanding access to health care. It's about expanding access to health care. It's like the Affordable Care Act. It's about Medicaid. It's about all the things that we've done over many years to expand access. There's a philosophical disagreement. We think it's extremely important, and this bill is a big step in the right direction. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Any other senators wish to explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 278, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, we've got a third reader calendar number 12. The clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 83, Senator Kramer, Utility Regulation, Consideration of Climate and Labor.
Senate Bill 83 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? Yes, Chair recognizes the senator from the Upper Eastern Shore.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. On the bill before us, you know, one of the interesting things about some of the bills we're seeing now is really what the effects are and how they'll be implemented. And again, this has a great title, but unfortunately really won't do anything different than what we already see the PSC doing in consideration of evidentiary cases before them and CPCN applications. The PSC testified that they already consider the preservation and effects of the environment. And now this bill will come back and say that they specifically need to evaluate the protection of the global climate from short-term and long-term warming. Okay, again, the PSC states it already considers the state's established goals when it comes to the climate, but that's not enough. Somehow now the PSC has to determine how this bill will affect the global climate. What's interesting about this bill is not only who testified, but who didn't testify. And who didn't come in on this bill with any request was the solar industry, specifically the utility scale solar industry that I believe recognizes what this bill will do is just lengthening the process for them to get their permits and approvals. We've seen a bill that was on the floor already. It's now back in committee where the solar industry came up to us and said they are already struggling to meet our goals that we put in place. They're struggling because of the time it takes to get through the process. They refer to 12 to 18 months to get a permit. All this will do is lengthen that process. PSC does not have the resources to carry out this bill, does not have the resources need to check on the labor portion of this, does not have the resources in place to check on how this will affect the global climate. So with that, Mr. President, I would just suggest, again, nice title. I guess you can get some points if you vote on considering the climate and labor. That's a good thing. But the reality is this will hurt the solar industry. This will hurt the process of the goals that we're trying to reach. And I would ask that the body vote against this bill. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Yes, thank you for that. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. Look, only the most jaded climate deniers would not recognize the value and the importance of the legislation that is before us today. The fact of the matter is the climate crisis is real. We have to begin addressing it immediately. This is one piece, one tool in the toolbox that we are giving to the Public Service Commission, which they do not have now, and in fact, opined in a rate case just about a little under 2 years ago, indicating they do not have state authority to address the issue that is before us in this bill. Colleagues, I would ask that you please put up a green vote and that we do start putting all the tools that are necessary in place to address the climate crisis, and we need to do so with immediacy. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes Senator from District 34.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this is a bill that, while it appears to be on its face a climate bill, is actually imposes a very regressive tax. This is a bill that's bad for those, the least among us. The one provision that's I find most interesting, which my colleague from Eastern Shore pointed out when he previously spoke on it, is the Fair Labor Standards Act provision. That provision applies to all projects that the Commission considers, and it requires that these non-governmental entities basically would adhere to fair labor standards. They already have to adhere to minimum wage requirements, so that's not the issue. And it was sort of suggested that, hey, it's all, you know, the public projects that we do as a state, they have to adhere to those, and this is just sort of an extension of that. But it's not. It's not an extension of that. When we impose fair labor standards on a project that that comes out of the general fund, the money for that is derived from a very progressive income tax system primarily, and that means that the least among us pay the least for that, and the least among us probably pay nothing for that. Actually, the increased cost of those standards. But when you apply those to utility projects, it's incredibly regressive because the burden falls primarily on the least among us. So this provision, which to me is sort of the guts of the whole bill, because as my colleague just pointed out, the environmental piece is already covered in existing legislation. The heart of this thing is the Fair Labor Standards Act provision, and it's imposing a very regressive tax on the least among us. So I'm going to oppose the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I just wanted to speak to one aspect of the opposition's concerns, and that is climate change on a worldwide basis. When we know that at both poles there is warming and melting, when we know that on the eastern shore of Maryland the seas are rising and we're losing almost one of our counties, we don't have but 24. Do we want to be swept away? Do we want future generations to read about what used to be even the geography of Maryland that no longer exists? We cannot sit with our heads in the sand. No matter if you like the bill or you don't like the bill, the fact is we should all stop being climate change deniers. It's worldwide. This is one little planet. And what happens in one part of it does affect the entire planet. We want to do what we're doing for posterity. And if we don't care about future generations, we ought to think again. I won't say more, but climate change is real and it's affecting us right here at home in Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from District 5.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just in speaking for a while, I'll be voting against this bill. I think some of the proponents talk about this as if this is introducing discussion or introducing evaluation of the impact of electricity generation on climate change like it's not happening right now. The PSC, it's already a part of what they have to consider. This bill is pretty duplicative in that regard. It's specifying it, but they already have to consider the impact of a number of environmental factors whenever they're approving these kinds of electric generation. This gets it into even other types of considerations that they have to make, and it's duplicative in that sense. But also, I think, looking at some of the testimony as I studied the bill in committee, there seems to be some confusion because the PSC at one point said that there was a ruling about climate change was not part of a decision-making process as it related to the approval of a particular plant. Well, what that decision was actually that the group that was opposing it did not present any evidence in the original hearing, and so then in the appeal they tried to present evidence, and so the discussion was about that. Well, the discussion saying that the PSA doesn't consider evidence of climate change in their rulings is not. It's not. I mean, it's not. That comes from that, but it's not correct. They consider it when it was presented. So. Again, I'm up speaking against the bill because I think it's duplicative. There's also dealing with the stable labor force. There's nothing really defining that in the bill. So for that reason, I'm voting red.
Thank you, Senator. All right, if there are no further senators who wish to speak, Senate Bill 83 is on third reader for final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? Very briefly, Chair, in explaining his vote, just a simple note that this is going to be an issue that we have numerous conversations about when it comes to climate, and this is incredibly complex, and just would caution all senators, just as we're talking, that there are reasonable differences about how best to do it, and so as we move forward on bigger issues around climate, that we really keep a focus on the policy that will get us there the most efficiently. With that, clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 83, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 284, Senator Simon Era, Maryland Veterans Service Animal Program definitions.
Senate Bill 284 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 284, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 338, Senator Simon Era, Local Government Animal Control Facilities Adoption Fee Waiver for Veterans, Pets for Vets Act of 2021.
Senate Bill 338 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 338, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. We've got another third reader calendar. This is number 13. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 22, Senator Young, On-Site Sewage Disposal Systems Inspection Licensing.
Senate Bill 22 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 22, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 34, Senator Lamb, State Board of Physicians, Genetic Counselors Licensing.
Senate Bill 34 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 34, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 84, Senator Young, Pharmacist Administration of Self-Administered Medications and Maintenance Injectable Medications.
Senate Bill 84 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 84, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 92, Senator Eckhart, income tax credits for preceptors in areas with health care, workforce shortages, eligibility, and sunset repeal.
Senate Bill 92 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 92, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 102, Senator Eckhart, income tax credits for preceptors in areas with health care shortages.
Senate Bill 102 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 102, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 121, Senator Patterson, zoning environmental justice considerations.
Senate Bill 121 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 121, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 131, Senator Patterson, Labor and Employment Apprenticeship and Training Council representation.
Senate Bill 131 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 131, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 186, Chair, Budget and Taxation Committee, Economic Development, Job Creation Tax Credit for hiring veterans.
Senate Bill 186 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 186, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 384, Senator Kelly, Health Facilities, Residential Service Agencies, Guidance and Reporting.
Senate Bill 384 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Everyone recorded their vote. Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 384, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 458, Senator Feldman, Insurance Impaired Entities, Delinquency Proceedings.
Senate Bill 458 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 458, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 473, Senator Washington, Labor and Employment Leave with Pay, Bereavement Leave.
Senate Bill 473 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? Chair recognizes the senator from the Upper Eastern Shore.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I rise just to make a few comments. I'm going to be supporting this bill as we did in committee. But unfortunately, I just think that this is further evidence that this legislature is out of touch with small businesses. Certainly testimony came in. Nobody is opposed to the concept of bereavement leave, but everybody that looked at the bill from the perspective of being a small business already believes that this is taken care of in the current paid sick leave bills that we passed before. So once again, we have to have legislation coming in to tell small businesses what to do. And frankly, it's just insulting. You know, small businesses make up 49% of 49% of all employees, make up 99% of the businesses here in Maryland. Yet we don't believe that they know how to treat their employees. And we continue to see bills over and over and over again mandating what needs to be done. And it's because we are not taking the time to understand how small businesses work. We're not taking the time to understand that employers and employees in small businesses actually have relations. They actually care about each other. They actually make these decisions on their own without the legislature having to tell them what to do. So again, I'm going to vote for the bill. I suggest my colleagues vote for the bill. I've talked to the different groups that represent small businesses. No one's against allowing bereavement leave. But again, the thing is, this is once again insulting to small businesses. And I just wish, Mr. President, that some of us would take the opportunity to really understand how small businesses work and not just follow organized labor and what all these requests are doing. So again, I ask that we vote for the bill, but we take time to start understanding small businesses.
Senator, just a reminder, there can be certainly reasonable policy differences. Let's make sure that we don't, that we avoid asking why specifically one bill may be on the floor versus another. I think if we stick to the policy differences, we can get through things successfully.
Mr. President, I don't think I questioned anybody's
fair enough.
intent, but I do think that my comments were part of the policy agreement, a disagreement. And again, I am voting for the bill, but again, we just see bills over and over again coming from organized laborers that are trying to put their thumb on small businesses because they recognize they just can't compete anymore with small businesses. And they need us as a legislative body, and they'll testify on this all the time, to help level the playing field. And again, I just wish as a group that we start to understand how these small businesses really operate and not just take organized labor's word for it. Thank you.
Senator, the chair looks forward to joining you in supporting the bill. Chair recognizes the senator from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I am a small business owner and operator, and I take no offense whatsoever to the legislation before us. The gentleman from the lower shore who just spoke indicated that he believes this legislation that currently exists incorporates what it is the bill before us does. This is clarifying to ensure that there is no misunderstanding about this issue, and no one is insulting our small business owners with this clarification. It simply is just that, a clarification so that if there is any doubt or any question, that employees who are seeking to take time off under existing law for purposes of bereavement have that opportunity. And yes, I have no doubt that overwhelmingly our business owners would not hesitate to provide this opportunity to their employees. But it just clarifies the issue. I have no idea how labor or labor relations got pulled into the discussion on this issue, but it is a good bill. It's a reasonable and thoughtful bill, and that's why I voted for it in committee, and I'll be voting for it on the floor. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes Senator from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Mr. President. Like so many of my bills, colleagues, it comes from constituents. This bill is not a vehicle for big labor. This bill, frankly, when I first introduced it, was brought last year by someone who wanted to have to be able to take leave for when her pet died. She wanted us to add animals to the definition of family. So the committee saw not to accept that. So in that research, I found that while I was seeking to provide this constituent an opportunity to take time off from work to grieve the loss of what she defined as a family member, I found that we did not generally have that right for anyone in the state of Maryland. And thus the bill before you. The bill before you was derived from the needs of our constituents. That is why I'm voting for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Senator from Vice Chair of the committee.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. And again, I thank the gentleman from the Upper Shore for voting for this bill, as did the entire committee. Just 2 quick points, just to clarify a couple things. The Flexible Leave Act, this is a clarification of that, which is very different than the sick leave bill that the gentleman was referring to. That bill dealt with how many hours we're going to guarantee folks a certain amount of earned leave. This actually is not so much about telling business what to do. This is about the bad actors. The reason this bill came in originally, it was about the fact that people wanted to take leave for illness, and they were at risk of being fired or having complaints filed against them. This is a protection against the bad actors. So the fact that we have in current law, and have had for over a decade, the Flexible Leave Act, is to protect, again, those situations where you are going to be ill and you shouldn't be fired. Here we're saying the most traumatic event in many people's lives, the loss of a child, the loss of a parent, as opposed to a headache or a migraine. Yes, that somebody who wanted to take that leave for bereavement should be afforded that same type of protection. That's all this bill does. Again, it's a protection, and it's not dictating to anybody anything that was referred to earlier. So, again, I'll join.
473 is on third reader for final passage. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Everyone recorded their vote. Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 473, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
I'd like to just change my vote on 121 from red to green, please.
On 121, prior calendar?
It was the beginning of this calendar, I believe.
Oh, Senator, yeah, right. We are at
the
the
middle
end
of
the
this calendar.
Yes. All right. Any objections to Senator changing from red to green? Without objection, so ordered. Thank you, Senator. All right. Let's see. We have executive nominations. We have a report from executive noms. This is report number 4. The clerk will read the report.
The Senate Executive Nominations Committee reports favorably on the gubernatorial appointments in report number 4 and recommends that the Senate of Maryland advise and consent to these appointments.
Chair recognizes the Chair of Executive Nominations Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate accept report number 4 of the Executive Nominations Committee in open session, and that we special order the report until February 26th, Friday.
All right. The chairman has moved to hear the report in open session and special order to the appropriate time on Friday. Senators, please make sure to take a look at the list. If there are any nominees that senators wish to vote on separately, please let the chair know before we vote on Friday. But without objection, we will take it up on Friday. All right. Let's see. We've got some second readers now. Let's start with budget and tax. We've got report number 6. The clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 314, Senator McCray, Board of Revenue Estimates and Bureau of Revenue Estimates, Organization and Operations, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 314 reorganizes the Bureau of Revenue Estimates, BRE, within the Comptroller's Office and alters the operation of BRE in the Board of Revenue Estimates. There's a minimal fiscal impact. The first committee amendment adds a sponsor and make changes to the purpose paragraph. The second amendment requires the Revenue Monitoring Committee to review candidates for the Chief of Bureau of Revenue Estimates, strikes language in the bill that will require Chief and Deputy Chief of the Bureau to be a member of the Executive Pay Plan, and requires certain estimates of the Bureau be reviewed and approved by the Revenue Monitoring Committee before being submitted to the Board of Revenue Estimates. Move adoption of the committee report, Mr. President.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question first is on the 2 committee amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 314 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 323, Senator Elfrith, Maryland Arts Capital Grant Program, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, you might be familiar with this bill from last session. We considered it and voted it out. And I would argue that this issue is even more imperative now in the midst of COVID. We have some incredible arts and cultural organizations, nonprofits throughout our state that are truly struggling like so many others in our state. But they're struggling both operations and on the capital side. They're struggling to pay for leaky roofs, for ADA compliance, to get the buildings back up and running for the public when we can. This bill establishes a Maryland Arts Capital Grant Program that would be run through the Maryland State Arts Council with at least one full-time coordinator for the program. For fiscal year 23 through 28, the governor must include $3 million in state operating or capital towards the program, and the State Arts Council must award the total amount each year subject to specified requirements in the bill. Mr. President, there are two committee amendments. The first adds sponsors. The second allows the grants to be also used for the acquisition of facilities and strikes the provision for the match requirement. Move adoption of the amendments in the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of two committee amendments in the favorable committee report. Questions on the amendments? Chair recognizes the senator from Frederick County.
Yeah, Mr. President, actually, I don't have a question on the bill. I'm trying to figure out, I have a parliamentary question, an order of business where we're at. I've been trying to follow this along. So it seems we started off, and I understand the president has broad discretion, but we seem to be jumping around a lot more than we normally do. Well, we have been beginning of this whole session. So was everything prior to this unfinished business?
No, Senator, we didn't have any unfinished business. We had a special order calendar, but if the senator remembers had said that without objection, we had everybody in the room. So it was easiest to take up the third readers first to make sure that everyone had a opportunity to vote.
Sure.
And then take on the second readers after.
Yeah, so I just want to point out, because we started, and I've noticed we've done that before, where we started off and we've done, which is number 12 on the order of business, the third readings. Then we went to 11. Then we went to, I assume, some unfinished business. Then we jumped to 9. Then now we're down to reports of the committees. We've totally skipped over 8 laid over bills. So I've noticed in a couple of sessions we've been doing this, and I'm trying to figure out. Normally, in the past, we'd always come in sometimes they would move up third readings first, but we seem to be jumping totally out of order on the motions.
Is there a question, Senator?
Well, I guess the question is, you made a motion in the beginning to go to third readings, but I haven't heard anything else about us jumping out of complete order, because we should be hitting the laid over calendar.
Senator, the rules do not require a specific order. There is a order of preference. If their senator has a specific issue that would like to bring up,
Yeah, I just think that we've been skipping over, for example, the laid over calendars every time. So, I mean, if we're going to have this order of business, I mean, I haven't said anything yet, but I've noticed we're not following it at all. So I guess that's my concern about it. If we're going to have an order of business, I would hope we would at least try to keep to it.
Thank you, Senator. All right, questions on the two committee amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 323 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 447, Senator Edwards, Historic Revitalizations Tax Credit, Certified Historic Structure, and Single-Family Owner-Occupied Residence Definitions. Favorable.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, the Senate Bill 447 alters the definition under the Historic Revitalization Tax Credit Program. This property has to be located on DNR-owned property, is occupied by a person under an agreement with DNR, by which the person pays for rehabilitation of the structure as the condition of occupancy, and qualifies to be designated under current law as certified historic structure, or is eligible to be listed in the National Register of Historic Places. No committee amendments. I move adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 447 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 529, Senator Elfreth, Anne Arundel County Hotel Tax Alterations, Distribution of Revenue, favorable with one amendment.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this is a local bill brought to us by our county executive that seeks to bring more transparency and accountability to our Visitors Bureau. Senate Bill 529 does two things. It requires the City of Annapolis to allocate 3% of its hotel tax revenues to the Arts in Public Places Commission, and then it requires the city in Anne Arundel County to establish a special fund for the distribution of the hotel tax revenue for community organizations, and it establishes reporting requirements and oversight of the hotel tax revenues provided to these community organizations. It's a simple audit and reporting to make sure we're bringing accountability back to this system. There's no fiscal impact. There's one committee amendment that corrects a drafting error. Move adoption of the committee, one amendment in the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. Questions on the amendment? Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 529 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 533, Senator Gazzoni, Horse Racing, Maryland Bred Race Fund Advisory Committee membership, favorable with two amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from District 6 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 533 increases the number of members on the Maryland Breed Race Fund Advisory Committee from 5 to 6, including a member who is a member of and recommended by the Maryland Thoroughbred Horsemen Association. There are no physical impact. There's two committee amendments. The first amendment changes the title, purpose, and the paragraph and function paragraph, and the second is alters the circumstances under a horse may be registered with the Maryland Horse Breeders Association. I move adoption to the favorable committee report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question first on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 533 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 591, Senator Zucker, Bureau of Revenue Estimates, Tax Incident Study Scope, favorable with two amendments.
Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from Montgomery County as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Senate Bill 591 just updates to current times, getting us tax data. It's referred to as an incident study, but it really just means who's paying taxes. Right now, we get data from the Bureau of Revenue Estimates on income and sales tax. This just gives us additional data on real property tax and motor fuel tax. There was no opposition to this. There are two committee amendments. One is technical, and the second is just requiring agency sharing. I move the amendments and adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Questions on the amendments? Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 591 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 593, Senator Zucker, Property Tax Homeowners Property Tax Credit Calculation and Refunds, favorable with three amendments.
Chair recognizes Senator from Montgomery County as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President and colleagues, Senate Bill 593 is really a team effort with Baltimore City and Montgomery County. Recently, there was a legislative audit where someone had a constituent of one of ours had contacted the Office of Legislative Audits to flag a discrepancy in terms of the homeowner's property tax credit and how it had been applied. And after legislative audits got to it, they realized that since 2005, Maryland homeowners, in particular in Montgomery and Baltimore City, have been shortchanged. I will read directly from what Mako wrote when it comes to testifying in support of this. What they had done was, so say for instance you're supposed to be getting a homeowner's tax credit of $2,000. You also benefited from other local income taxes. What State Department of Assessment Taxation had done was they were counting whatever that local benefit was against what they'd be getting as a credit. So on average, say you were going to get a $2,000 credit in Baltimore City, if you're going to get a $500 local credit, they deducted the $500, so you're only getting $1,500 back, which resulted in millions of dollars being shortchanged to Maryland homeowners. And as Mako said, it resulted in thousands of Maryland low-income homeowners were paying excessive taxes. So what this does is it helps to right this wrong. This has been going on for 15 years, but what we did was a 3-year look back, because that's what the federal government does in terms of refunds. What we've done is we've used the local reserve account, which has money in it to pay immediately these homeowners, and it requires the money to be repaid back from the general fund, so our account, to the local reserve account over 15 years. There is 3 committee amendments. One is technical, changes the purpose paragraph. 2, it clarifies that the refund is only related to the homeowner's property tax credit. We don't want to recreate the same problem. And the 3rd extends the payment, as I suggested, from 6 years to 15 years. As amended, these amendments were ESTAT. Some of these were ESTAT amendments, and I appreciate ESTAT working with us on this. As amended, there's no opposition, and I would move the amendments and adoption of favorable committee report. And Mr. Chairman, this is, Mr. President, this is another example of us providing money to homeowners right now when they need it most. And when this money will be going out the door, I don't want to be presumptuous, but if this bill becomes law, it'll be going out the door after July. Move the committee amendments and adoption of favorable committee report.
Thank you, Senator. The floor leader moves for the adoption of the 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question first is on the amendments, and appreciate the floor leader's clear explanation of what is sometimes tax law can feel a little bit wonky, but appreciate the clarity that the senator offered to explain this. Questions on the amendments? Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 3 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report, the report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 593 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 606, Senator Hershey, Correctional Officers Retirement System, County, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from District 2 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Bill 606 requires the Kent County Detention Center officers to become members of the Correctional Officers Retirement System, subject to Kent County beginning participation. Past eligibility and credible service with Kent County transfers over for the affected officers, and they are not subject to specified credit transfer provisions in current law. Additionally, this legislation is identical to legislation that was passed for Queen Anne's County in 2019. There are no amendments. Move adoption of the committee report.
Thank you, Senator. Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 606 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. Clerk, read the next bill. I think we have one more. No, 3 more. 3 more.
Senate Bill 641, Senator Elfreth's State Retirement and Pension System, Fiduciary Insurance, favorable.
Chair recognizes the chair of the Pension Committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill simply conforms our law to current practice. Currently, we require that the state retirement and pension system purchase as a bond for each fiduciary of the system. They have been using the use of purchasing an insurance policy. The treasurer, in consultation with the Board of Trustees, must determine the type and amount of coverage provided by the insurance policy. So again, this is just conforming to current practice. Just as background, colleagues, the system maintains a $1 million employee theft insurance policy that covers the direct loss or damage to money to the system. And in fiscal 22, the budget includes over $200,000 for this insurance policy. Move adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 641 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 647, Senator King, Federal COVID-19 Relief Funding Report, favorable with 2 amendments.
The chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 647, as amended, is an emergency bill that requires the Department of Budget and Management to submit reports to the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee and House Appropriations Committee by March 15th, 2021, and quarterly through June 30th, 2022, on federal COVID-19 relief funding provided in the state under the Federal Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021, and any other federal legislation providing funding for COVID-19 response or relief. There are 2 amendments. Amendment number 1 adds sponsors and makes technical changes to the title, and amendment number 2 adds additional quarterly reporting requirements through June 30, 2022, and includes funding from additional federal legislation in the reports. I move adoption of the amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question first is on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 647 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 678, Senator Edwards, Task Force on the Economic Future of Western Maryland, extension of report deadline and task force, favorable.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, Senate Bill 678 extends the duration of the Task Force for the Economic Future of Western Maryland for a period of 6 months. There are no amendments. I move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Chair wants to thank the senator for passing along the initial interim report. Some really important initiatives to move forward as soon as possible on this one. Any discussion on the report? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 678 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, good news. We are on the late over calendar. Number 7. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 127, Senator Patterson, Institution of Higher Education, Use of Criminal History in Admission Modifications.
Senate Bill 127. The question is on the committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question first on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Chair recognizes the minority whip. With an amendment?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. President. I have an amendment.
Senator, could you read the number of the amendment, please?
The amendment is 153223/1.
223/1. 223/1. Do we have that one? Do we have it on the floor laptop? One moment, Senator. Just give us just a moment.
No problem.
All right. Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So what this, let me re-explain to the section of the legislation that this amendment is going to affect. This legislation, what it seeks to do, builds upon a couple years ago, there was that you could not deny admission to colleges on the basis of a criminal record. This section of the bill, 26/501, deals with admission to campus residency. So this is the dormitories and things like that. So when the bill originally passed a couple years ago, there was an exception dealing with campus residency because the idea was you didn't want to have somebody who was the college would look at and say was dangerous. So obviously that would be a liability issue for the college. It could be dangerous for the students. So that was totally taken out of the bill originally. And then this deals with access to campus residency. So the legislation says that that they cannot deny, based on a criminal record, access to campus residency, and that they may not automatically deny or make unreasonable restrictions. And then what it does is it says, but if an institution of higher education, this was what's in the bill, may develop a process for determining or restricting access to college campus residency for students who have been convicted of a sexual crime, which makes sense, because Title III is some of the worst. That's first-degree rape, that's incest, that's solicitation of a minor, terrible stuff. But normally when you have Title III of the criminal law in there, you're trying to figure out people to remove, you also would put in what my amendment is Title 14, which is, those are your most violent crimes. So, and these are the ones with your mandatory sentencing schemes. These are abduction, kidnapping, mayhem, murder, rape, armed carjacking. So these are your worst offenses, and that's typically in JPR, when you're putting something like this together, that's how you lump it together as your most violent crimes are 14101s. So all this amendment says is, just as colleges, quote, under the bill, may develop a process for determining or restricting access for students who have been convicted of a sexual crime, mine would also say for these dormitories and residences, they can do the same for a student that has been convicted of a 14101 crime of violence. And again, this is not small crimes. These are the worst crimes that the state deems for mandatory sentences for, like I said, intent to murder. The only assault that's in here is assault with a weapon. That's first degree. You're basically trying to kill the person. Kidnapping, mayhem. I mean, these are tough ones, so I would ask favorable on the amendment.
Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, and let me say I appreciate the efficiency with which you handle the sessions and the agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, this is about ban the box. We took action 4 years ago. We shouldn't exclude people who have served time from attending college. Many have turned their lives around. We had PhDs who were convicted of a crime who've gained their doctorates. There's actually an organization that addresses this. So we think we're on the right side of history on this. Late, but still on the right side of history. We essentially said you couldn't ask the question up front, but if someone wanted to pursue residency, the college or university could ask question and set up a policy about people living on campus. That was true for the last 4 years. That's true going forward. There's no change. I believe the amendment that the senator has raised is trying to make this bill into something it's not. We, of course, wanted to allay some fears. I mean, the first thing people think about when you think of criminals, you think of rape and those kind of cases, and we obviously can't have that on a campus. So to allay those fears, we put a small line in amendment to say that should be explicitly part of any policy. But the law is very clear. They can reject residency on a campus based on any crime. That exists now. It will exist in the future. I know the senator has this amendment and more to follow. I don't think we need to transform this bill into a law and order bill or whatever it might appear if we adopt all of these amendments. We think it handles the law correctly. Our committee counsel has said the same. So for those purposes, Mr. President, members of the Senate, I would urge a red vote.
All right. Chair recognizes the Chair of Judicial Proceedings Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to see if the maker of the amendment would yield for a question or two.
Will the amendment's author appear so? Senator may proceed.
Good. Thank you very much, Mr. President. So just, I'm looking up, obviously, the amendment addresses 14101, which, as you've gone through the laundry list, some of the more serious crimes. I just wanted, can you just walk us through the intent of why you've added this here, and then I guess I'll pivot back over to the chair of the committee, because I want to just understand how this folds into the purpose of the bill. Because
Sure. So what the bill says right now is you may not automatically or unreasonably deny a student's access to a college campus residency. So this is only talking about dormitory, their residency on campus. The next part of the amended bill says an institution may develop a process for determining or restricting access, but it only lists Title III, which are the serious sex offenses. And it leaves out, my amendment would add in Title 14, crimes of violence, because I think that if we're going to spell out for Title III that they may develop a process for restricting access, and quite frankly, I don't want them to fall under the above where they can't unreasonably restrict. I quite frankly think for 14101, for a murder, for all these crimes that we listed, but let's just use murder, for example, they should be able to unreasonably restrict access to a college dormitory. And so I want to just put them under the same posture they are for Title III sex crimes as the bill came out.
Okay.
And I would say, if I could too, Title 14 101s, those are the most serious. You can't get more serious in Maryland than that. So I don't know why they're not accepting this as a friendly amendment.
No, I get it. So then thank you very much for that, Senator.
Thank
I'll
you.
pivot over to the
Does the chair have a question for the floor leader? Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. So just again, understanding the purpose of the bill, it's a may not shall, but what was the policy reason for excluding 14101 or any other section for that matter? And alternatively, why did you only incorporate
Right.
the sex
No,
crimes?
thank you, Senator and Mr. Chairman. On line 7 and through line 10, it makes very explicit that an institution of higher education may use a student's criminal history. Criminal history. That means anything where they've been convicted of a crime. It is a fairly broad universe in making decisions regarding access to campus residency. I mean, you can't get much clearer than that. Now, we didn't want to list every crime in the world, but because the first thing that comes to people's mind are sexual crimes and being on a campus between men and women and mixed residence dorms, we did add that just to underline that concern. But the umbrella is very clear that any crime, dangerous crimes, crimes of passion, murder, whatever, are included in this bill. This is the first of a number of amendments. We just think the bill's very, very explicit in what it does. It's been that way for 4 years. We think it retains the same language.
So the amendment could be perceived as potentially duplicative and unnecessary.
Correct.
Chair recognizes the Chair of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. In addition, it just occurs to me that we hope that whatever correction we have provided in our criminal justice system means that some people are reformed. It would suggest to me that if they are in an institution of higher education seeking to further educate themselves, they want to be of benefit to society, that they have learned their lessons, that they have been reformed, that even if their original criminal behavior during a much earlier point in their lives was a result of psychosocial problems they were dealing with or the environment in which they were growing up or something, that these are people we want to celebrate. I could certainly understand the limited specifications already added to the bill, but I don't think we want people who have reformed themselves, people who want more education, people who want that to serve the nation, to serve people, to do good. And to go on and on and on, specify. Many of them would be discouraged if we went on with the whole laundry list from trying to get further education and to do good. If people want to do good, we've got to believe that people can be saved, that people can do better. And if they are, I think the fact that they are seeking higher education, that they want to take tests, they want to learn, they want to contribute to the society, ought to be more important to us than what they did as a much younger person unreformed. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes Senator from the 34th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I have great support for efforts to try to bring folks back into society, people who have strayed. Once you did the crime, you did the time, and now we try to bring them back into the fold. And that's great. And we all know that our parole systems, our probation systems, they take a bit of a risk, because how do we know if you're reformed completely? How do we know if you've gotten over those traumas? But, we've decided in this body that we're going to take a bit of a risk. And that's, we really don't have a choice, because we got to take a risk at some point. And it's appropriate in society to take risks. But don't take a risk on my 18-year-old son's or grandson's life, because they didn't sign up to take a risk. And we sit in this body constantly hearing about how 18-year-olds' minds aren't formed, and we got to take care of them and take care of 18-year-olds. But you know what? It seems too often that only applies to people who have criminal pasts. It doesn't apply to the rest. It doesn't apply to the kids who just walk to school every day and try to do what they're supposed to do. We're supposed to take a risk on only people and reach out and help people who have criminal pasts. But don't dare to try to protect the innocent kids who really don't know much about how do you deal with somebody who has a very violent past. And how do you know that the 18-year-old kid who's not the criminal past, how do you know they don't have mental issues of their own? That they don't know how to deal with people normally, and now you're going to put them in the room with somebody who has a past history of very violent behavior. These aren't just minor assaults we're talking about here. This is serious stuff. And to keep this kind of information from parents, and you're going to put kids in these rooms. I remember there was a case a number of years ago about a kid who firebombed the front porch of a frat at College Park and killed a bunch of kids. We need to know about assaultive behaviors, particularly the kind that's mentioned in this amendment. This is not penny-ante stuff. This is serious stuff. And for this body to even consider that we wouldn't fully inform parents and kids, make sure they know what they're going into the room with. It's one thing for us to take a risk as adults, but we ought not be taking that risk on 18-year-old kids who don't know a darn thing about this. And to put this in their room and not let these people know about that is absurd. And to suggest that this bill, the existing bill, it says an institution of higher learning may develop a process for determining restrictions based upon the sexual allegations. You can develop a process. Well, you know what that means? That means you can't develop a process for anything else. That means you can't develop a process, because in statutory construction, if you put one in, you excluded the others for a reason. And so they can't develop a process for dealing with people who have violent assaultive pasts. And I'm not saying, and none of us are saying, lock them up and throw away the key. None of us are saying, don't give these kids a chance. What we are saying is, we better take care of these kids in college. We owe it to them. And social experiments going run amok here are going to get innocent kids beat up and killed. We shouldn't do that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, the questions on the amendment. Will the floor leader yield for a sec? Just quick clarifying question. The bill, as is drafted, says that it may not automatically or unreasonably. In either case, a process could be created for any of it. Is that correct?
It actually requires one to be developed. If you look in line, 19 and 20, it requires a process that all higher education institutions must do.
The issue is whether or not automatic denial. Is that the
No, it's not. That's not the issue in front of us.
Could the floor leader clarify that? Just
the current law and what's in this bill continues the practice that every institution of higher education cannot use someone's past criminal history to deny entrance on those grounds. But they may ask a question and use that in deciding whether to allow residency if it is a 4-year campus and they have residential housing. And then in line 19 and 20, it says they shall develop a process. So I'm not sure what else you need, Mr. President.
Questions on the amendment? Chair recognizes the Vice Chair, Budget and Tax.
Senator from College Park. Will the floor manager yield? What position did the institutions of higher education take on the bill in general and to the extent that this issue was addressed in committee?
There was no opposition. They did not come and testify.
Mr. Floor Leader, would you agree to special order this bill? I'd like to talk to the University of Maryland about this, get their perspective on it before dealing with the amendment or the bill.
Just move to special order. If we could, I think maybe take it one day just to make sure we understand what exactly we're doing. Can we, before we can take it up on Friday?
Sure, but I think we're making something a lot more complicated than it is. The bill came in saying the institutions, while the common application may have that question, they cannot use that to prohibit someone from being admitted to the school. It continued the practice of saying any criminal history could be used in making decisions about on-campus living. That's what this bill does. We added an amendment because to allay fears of sexual crimes, and we said, when you develop that plan, make sure that you cover that. That's all this bill does. And when it came in, they had no position. They're already doing it for their own application. Those colleges and universities that have their own application, they've been following this law for 4 years. They've been required to, or 3 years. This just updates it because of the common application.
In terms of residential living. Is that correct? Maybe then I am confused about it. I thought this provision wasn't about somebody's application for admission. I thought this related specifically to residential living on campus.
The bill came in addressing the common application and making it clear to institutions in Maryland they cannot use any response to that question to prohibit admission into the college. That's how it came in. The bill already said that they had to develop a process when they develop policies regarding criminal history vis-a-vis on-campus housing. So we just added a small paragraph saying, in doing that, they had to make sure they covered sexual crimes.
I appreciate that. I don't want to delay us unruly today, and I appreciate the willingness to hold it over and special order it so we can. So I just have a chance to talk to the university.
That's fine.
I appreciate it.
We will take it up on Friday. It's important to get this right. All right. Without objection, the bill will be special ordered to the appropriate time on Friday. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 31, Senator Washington, electricity and gas energy suppliers supply offers.
All right. Question is on the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Questions on the amendments. Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members, Finance Committee. Just to be sure, I'm sure we've gotten a lot of emails about this. This can be a complicated process. I want you to just sort of remember sort of some key things. We're talking about grants to the Office of Home and Energy Programs, a grant program that this body, through the Relief Act, just added an additional $9 million. Okay. So I've had, and so we're also talking about something that has been observed, and there's a report just coming out. The Washington Post just released an ad. There have been a number of ads that show that due to deregulation, which we've been hearing about the impacts of that in Texas, more specifically, but due to deregulation, individuals are often offered a choice of receiving their energy from our standard suppliers, which is what all of us typically use, or with the hopes of finding a lower rate. Third parties is they purchase energy from the regular suppliers, and they sell it at a higher rate. So sometimes what happens is there are introductory offers and there's some deals, etc. And so people find that at the end, they are paying more than if they had stayed with the standard rate. So in Maryland, about 20% of Maryland families are paying 2 cents more for electricity and about 25 cents more for natural gas, and it adds up. As a procedural thing, when we're looking at this bill, which is looking to address this issue, that an estimated $12 to $15 million are wasted in the Maryland Office of Home Energy Program, that today it's completely legal to offer these higher bills, that higher energy prices lead to sky-high bills and turnoffs, and that when you have these sky-high bills and turnoffs, our consumers who are often uninformed, sometimes they're seniors, they don't really know what rates are, they're not going to go on a website and try to press that, but somebody's going to knock on their door and say, hey, I have a way for you to save money. So the suppliers will sell low and they'll sell high, and they go door to door, and they target low-income zip codes in Baltimore City, in Prince George's County, and actually in the urban areas of Harford County, if you look at that data. So to keep their power on, so they have a bill that's on average ranging from $500 more to $1,200 more that year, they come to the state of Maryland for energy assistance, and that is a good thing. We've been offering this program, and the goal of this program is to keep the lights on, to keep the energy on. So what happens is they get the energy assistance grants, but because the bill is so high, the grant does not actually cover the full bill. So this bill, as drafted, I think it's worth it to see what the bill was doing as drafted. We had an opportunity to look at on the adoption of the committee amendments, had an opportunity to look at the amendments that were offered, to look at those that are approved by the committee, also to look at the amendments offered by the sponsor during the bill hearing. And I want to be clear, all of us are accustomed to having our bills changed. This is not about ownership. This is not about Senator Washington wanting her bill. The question I have for the body is when we adopt, and what I do is if I'm adopting a committee report and I'm adopting the amendments, I believe that this is truly going to lead to producing the best product for the citizens of Maryland. So what I'm going to ask you to consider during the course of this discussion is, do the committee amendments, is this the best we can really do in light of COVID? Is the best we can really do by, I know all of you are getting calls from your constituents about high energy prices. The best we can really do when we know that it is predatory, targeting seniors. You got a letter from from AARP. We got a letter from the Latino Caucus. We got a letter from the Black Caucus. We've got numerous of entities, religious organizations, cancer support foundations supporting the bill as it was introduced. So colleagues, what I'd like to say about that is that as introduced, this bill is very similar to the bill that we sent in last year. So we passed this bill last year. We modified this bill that passed through the Senate, and it allows for, originally this bill came in, it would have prohibited any energy dollars from going to third-party retailers at all. Okay, so just to understand the bill as not amendment as it came to the committee. That's what other states do. They prohibit home energy dollars at all. But what we did in listening to the industry and listening to others, and we modified the bill, and that Senate bill, that Senate version, allowed for third-party retailers to participate in. We're looking at the original bill as it came to the committee. We passed that bill. So as originally sponsored, this bill was a compromise bill. It preserved choice. It preserved state resources. It helped ensure that customers who may not have a lot of time to deal with reading or comparing prices are not taken advantage of. These amendments that passed out of finance and that are on the floor now for your consideration, for your adoption, for your co-signing, is not a compromise bill. It's an entirely different bill. I would draw your attention to the title. The title has changed from electricity, gas, energy suppliers, supply offers, to consumer relations. Okay, so now instead of making policy about supply offers and energy supplies, we're making policy about consumer relations, early termination fees, rate regulation, and education programs. As drafted, however, SB 31, with sponsor amendments, would have prohibited low-income Marylanders from receiving energy assistance through state-funded programs, from using third-party suppliers that have prices higher than standard services. That's great. We agree on that. SB 31 would require the Public Service Commission, our regulator, to establish a program for third-party suppliers to demonstrate they have a product that can meet or beat SOS prices and can be offered to individuals who receive energy assistance through the Office of Energy Programs. So it's empowering the PSC, our regulator, to identify and kind of help find the best deal for our state dollars. It would maximize the efficiency of the limited state energy budget while protecting low-income, often older households. It also offered an option that allowed deregulated suppliers to continue to sell to households on energy assistance, but, and only but, if we ensure that they charge the same rate or even lower as a regulated utility. And as drafted with sponsor amendments, SB 31 is fiscally responsible because it ensures retail choice. So just to sum, it protects limited state dollars, $15 million a year plus the additional $9 million. It protects seniors from very low income, from overpaying and turnoffs, and it's going to address about 30 to 40,000 out of 400,000 retail accounts. So we're really only talking about 10% of the accounts. Now, as drafted, Senate Bill 31 has 100% compliance. It protects consumers on the front end versus the back end, and I will talk with you more about that. When we looked at the bill, I went back and actually looked at the vote and tried to see what was going on. And when the committee counsel summarized the bill and the amendments for the committee vote, he said, I quote, and this is to the point that we just made some adjustments to make the bill better. He said, and I quote, the amendment strikes the bill in its entirety. So it strikes the bill in its entirety. So it strikes the full ability to protect state energy assistance funds, to protect people on the front end, and to pre-approve suppliers prior to allowing them the opportunity to use state dollars to pay their bills. So just, again, finally, this is just about as drafted. This is how it would work. The supplier would enroll in an OHEP account. The enrollment would be sent to the utility. If it's an OHEP account, the utility sees if the supplier is on the pre-approved list. If yes, it goes to the enrollment, goes through. The OHEP account gets a utility letter notifying of the switch, and if no sale, it's dropped. So, Mr. President, at this time, I would like to ask the committee, if we could, just some questions about the bill. So if the floor leader... On the amendments, Senator? Oh, sorry, on the amendment. Right. Sorry. It's on the amendment I wish to understand. So now that I guess I'll summarize in the sense of saying that I've explained to you what the bill as amended, as proposed did. And I'd like to have an opportunity to better understand what these committee amendments do, which again, to ascertain, is it the best, which us to make the decision, are these amendments the best we can do today for the ratepayers of Maryland?
And Senator, I had a question for the floor leader on the amendments. Is that, just want to make sure that I understood that correctly. Yes. Will the floor leader yield to questions on the amendments?
Yeah, the question is, what do the amendments do? Is that correct?
Senator,
Yes.
Senator has the floor. Senator may proceed.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. First of all, floor leader, I want to wish you a belated happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. It was electrifying.
So, Madam Floor Leader, I just want to ask you just a couple of things. First, just about the bill as it came in. Did the bill as drafted and with the sponsor amendments, was there support for the bill?
There wasn't a whole lot of discussion. I mean, who do you mean support? Do you mean who supported it?
Yes.
Well, I believe the Catholic Conference supported it, AARP supported it, and there were a few other groups that supported it. One of my biggest concerns about the bill was the Public Service Commission did not support it. They came in unfavorable. And it seems to me, as time goes on, whatever we want to do energy-wise, we just say, okay, Public Service Commission, you can do it. And that was one of my biggest concerns.
Well, thank you for that. Would it surprise you that we drafted some sponsor amendments? I guess I should ask, were the sponsor amendments taken up at all in the committee?
You'll have to ask the chairman. I'm assuming. I can't see. The vice chair, were there sponsor amendments?
Will the vice chair yield for Pierce?
Yes, I'll say, okay, can I just, we're talking about the committee amendments. Can I just sort of reframe, because I think the answer is, yes, we looked at the sponsor amendments, but we also took up the fact that you did not mention, and the floor leader just mentioned, that, okay, first and foremost, let me just commend you for being a leader in this space. We have had a bill, this topic of making sure that a third-party supplier does not take advantage of a consumer and is not forced into a plan that's paying more than they were paying for the standard utility, is a huge issue. It's an important issue. And the entire committee wholeheartedly agrees with the intent of your bill, which is to make sure that doesn't happen. And so that's what the amendment does do. It specifically says in the bill that a third-party supplier shall not be able to offer. It will be illegal to offer a plan that costs more than the utilities were charging. That was the primary intent of your bill, and that is codified now as a result of this amendment in Maryland law. So I want to commend you. This bill does that. It has some other things with this amendment. Where the difference was, and the difference between your sponsor amendments and the amendment that's on the table is very specific. Your bill said that as opposed to having
just
this
a reminder, it's the senator's bill. The senator's bill.
Yes, I'm sorry. The senator's bill and the senator's amendments. The big difference between what you have on the board here and your amendments specifically had to do with this pre-approval process. So you would have had the senator's sponsor amendments would have put on the PSC an obligation to go through a pre-approval process before these offers would be even out in the public. And if you look, and this is really for the body, you can look at the Public Service Commission testimony in opposition. The Public Service Commission often gives us letters of information. They rarely weigh in opposition. They did it here primarily not because they disagreed with the policy call of making sure to protect folks on energy assistance, but they basically said that your pre-approval process was not workable. And if you look at the PSC they specifically made 3 or 4 comments about why that would not be workable. So, for example, they say in order to implement what you wanted, you, the senator, the sponsor, they would have had to go through a regulatory process that would have taken 1 to 2 years. 1 to 2 years. They said it would have involved extensive evidentiary hearings involving information that they didn't have access to or authority to come up with. And so, like every bill that comes in, we agree 100% with what you're achieving here, and this amendment does that, the amendment from the committee. But what it didn't do, we took into account, as we always do as a committee, opposition from the regulator to make the goal of the bill workable. And that's what this amendment did. So we did not go with this pre-approval process based on the testimony in opposition by the Public Service Commission, but we put into law for the very first time that it will be illegal to make an offer that costs more than the standard offer service. And if you do that, you will be subject to fines and penalties by the Public Service Commission. It is a significant step forward. And again, I'm going to commend you for your leadership on this. As a direct result of your leadership, the Public Service Commission last year has a new consumer protection unit specifically on this topic as a direct result of the bills that you brought in last year and this year. So, Mr. President, I'm just trying to frame the issue a little bit in terms of what we're trying to achieve, what I think was the primary intent of the sponsor's bill in its original form. The committee took into account the Public Service Commission reservations and letter of opposition and made some modifications to the bill, as we always do as a committee. We would all love our bills to come in and come out clean without any adjustments or amendments. That's rarely the case, and it was not the case when it came to Senate Bill 31. So I will stop there. I'm not sure if that was responsive to your question about the differences, but that's how I see it.
No, thank you very much for that, and you've given me an opportunity to respond in great details to those positions. But would the floor leader again yield this is to the issue of the PSC. So I reached out to the PSC and had shared with them the committee member, the sponsor amendments that I offered in the hearing. One addressing the year, the amount of time. So one amendment would move the requirement for regulations from 22 to 23. The other amendment would be to remove this requirement at the end for a special test case. And then the other amendment to address the industry concerns was to make sure that it was comparing apples and apples. So from that, I got an email that says, yes, Christine, now the PSC is neutral on S31. I assume the amendments that Washington described during the Senate Bill 31 are the same as those in the House bill. So they've moved their position from being unfavorable to just, what I seem would be a willingness to go with the amendments and feeling that the amendments are within their purview. So there were some assertions about that. Again, I want to ask the question, and I want to assert that this is not my bill. This is now our bill. This is the committee bill. This is the Senate of Maryland's bill. This is the Senate of Maryland's decision on what we can do best and how we can best serve the people of Maryland. So I do want to ask the floor leader just about some of these things. The Office of People's Counsel, so we pay attention to the PSC, and that's important. They're our regulators. But did you get a letter, or did you see the letter from the OPC concerning? Oh, actually, I'm sorry. What was the source of the amendments? I mean, you had sponsor amendments and.
Senator, they were the committee's amendments.
They were the committee amendments that I spoke to some folks, and that's what we came up with.
Okay.
You know, when you're in the committee and you talk to people about a bill, they'll give you input. Yeah. And that's what I did.
Yeah. No, I
and that's what we did. And, you know, I think that the amendments are very efficient, And there are two different schools of thought here, and this was the one school of thought, and I believe you have another thought, as well as all the people that came in and talked about your bill. But we were trying to, myself and others, trying to do a compromise to try to help both sides, and that's where we came down on. And if you would like me to read the things that are in, I think it's a very good amendment. I think it's the best amendment I've ever sponsored, actually. But it's the price to compare. You can compare the price. And then you can, once the gas and electric company gets that price, they have to tell the third party, the retailers, what their price is. Okay, the gas and electric company has to say what their price is, and they have to let the retailers know that price. And if the retailers are higher, guess what? They are not allowed to be higher. They have to lower their price or to meet the SOS, and they can also lower it even further. So that's good. And there is no termination fee. That's good. Establishing a customer education program that educates customers on the benefits of comparison shopping for electric and gas service. I'd like to have that myself. Teaches customers how to shop and compare for electric and gas service. Informs customers how to access Commission's Customer Choice Shopping website. Provides the information specified in items through the items to the customers on a quarterly basis, and the office shall provide to a customer educational materials. They're going to have educational materials according to my amendment here that state the benefits of comparison shopping for electric and gas service, describe how to shop for electric and gas service, include a list of standard offer service and third-party retail suppliers, and state that if the customer receives an electric or gas service from a third-party retail supplier that costs more than the price to compare, the third-party retail supplier must offer service at or below the price to compare, or, and I'm sorry to take this much time, facilitate transitioning the customer to standard offer service or the gas commodity rate. So the office shall develop the educational materials required under this paragraph and coordinate the commission and interested stakeholders. So I think this is a pretty good compromise, and I understand that, you know, you're concerned about it, but I think we didn't leave anybody in a lurch. I think we're doing well for the customers. And as I said, all the material educational material is very important. And in 1999, we passed the bill to deregulate, and that's where we're at, and we're trying to make it better. We were supposed to do much more education throughout the years, and it never happened. And so now is the time, and we have it right here in the bill.
Again, I agree, Madam Floor Leader, that we're moving along. But again, as I said in my opening, it's curious that this bill is now more restrictive and less comprehensive and more onerous on the actual ratepayer than the bill we passed out last year. So one thing, this placing the onus of the utilities to notify a third-party supplier when a residential customer is on energy assistance. Can you explain that? Because
well, they contact OHEP, and OHEP contacts the electric company, and the electric company will then tell the third-party retailers. And it makes it convenient for the third-party retailers as well as the gas and electric. And you might even get a better rate when you contact those third-party retailers. You might be spending, say, for instance, $200 a month, okay, then you realize you have to contact OHEP for some help. And so the gas company does find out, the gas and electric, and they say, well, our deal is $200 a month. And then, so the retailers might be able to come back and say, okay, we're going to undercut you, SOS. We might be $150 a month. So it could be a very, very good help.
Well, that's curious, and part of, Mr. President and colleagues, part of my concern about the retail, this is a very similar amendment that was attempted to be introduced into the House by the Retail Energy Suppliers Association. Our bill, again, without this amendment, and if we reject the committee amendments, it skips this process of going back and forth between the retailer and the supplier, and something that was omitted from there is the consumer, right? So we would skip that third-party supplier plans would be approved up front by the PSC. So all plans sold to OHES customers would already be approved. So that senior citizen in your community, that person that doesn't read very well, that person that's not can do the internet, who doesn't have time to comparison shop, the PSC would approve ahead of time this list of suppliers and say, hey, you can get from them. So secondly, the other part of what you said is that the amendments allow the third-party suppliers to not report their pricing to the PSC, therefore creating a sort of honor system where the third-party suppliers essentially pledge, they pledge up front, right, to charge customers who receive energy assistance through OHEP at or below. So this could go on for a 12-month period, and who would verify? My question to the floor leader would be like, who would verify this? Is it the utility? Whose responsibility would it be?
Well, I would think that if you're paying a third-party person, you have your bill. There's a verification right there. So you know how much you've been paying, and if the gas and electric company tells you, hey, you're paying too much, but because of this bill, you can't pay that much, that's what's going to happen. And you got to look at your bill and know how much you're paying. And you're right, the gas and electric has all that information, or the SOS has that information, the retailers do not. But you, as a customer, should have your bill.
So once again, the onus is on the 90-year-old grandmother. The onus is on the very busy homeowner. The owner is on the consumer. I'm just understanding.
I understand
I'm just understanding that in the committee's amendments, all of the onus and responsibility is on the customer, buyer beware, versus we have an opportunity as a body to make the policy decision that, particularly when it comes to state dollars, the $15 million that we always spend on OHEP grants and the $9 additional million. And remember, if there are overpayments, if people are paying too high, that's fewer poor people that get help. That means that the energy assistance program in Hartford County or in Cecil County or in Baltimore City or Allegheny County could run out of funds, and then those dollars go to the suppliers. And then after the fact, after they already have the money, maybe we can go back and say, oh, you shouldn't be on this list because but meanwhile, they've made the profit.
Senator?
Yes, sir.
We are bumping up into time, and we have a number of people that wish to speak on the bill. I suspect we may want to take this one up another day, if there's no objection to that.
No objection.
Okay, and maybe in the meantime, we can work through any of the issues between the amendments.
Would love to.
Okay. All right. Without objection, the bill will be special ordered to the appropriate time on Friday. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 52, Senator Washington, Public Health, Maryland Commission on Health Equity, the Shirley Nathan Pulliam Health Equity Act of 2021.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee. The chair, Madam Chair, is this the bill?
Yes, Mr. President, I'll ask that the bill be recommitted to the committee for an amendment.
Without objection, the bill be recommitted back out this week. All right. That does it. That clears the desk. The desk is clear. All right, we are bumping right up. Let's see, let's do committee announcements. Chair of Finance, committee announcements.
I'm having trouble with this.
Yeah, I just noticed. We're going to see if we can get that fixed. It's not going back in.
We are going to get started at 1:15 for bill hearings, and 30 minutes after we finish the bill hearings, we will do a voting session.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair recognizes the Chair of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. And before I announce the time for our meeting today, Mr. President, members of the Senate, it was alluded to earlier about testimony coming in from the administration that I think was a letter of information or a letter of concern. And while I raised this before, for people who have served longer than 5 years or 6 years, I would like you to know that every Democrat and Republican governor and their administration had their agencies come in with letters that said we support or we oppose, with a list of amendments if they supported it. And this was helpful to both Democrats and Republicans on the committee that didn't have all the knowledge and expertise. And for our committee, as you know, we cover procurement, natural resources, education, elections. It's a fairly broad gamut. And we rely on that, ladies and gentlemen, from the technocrats and the people who are not political, who know how to implement in each of those agencies. And I have to tell you, it complicates our work and extends our work because we don't always have the technical knowledge. And when the administration comes in with a letter of information that you have to read between the lines, it doesn't help us try to ferret through the information to find out what is the best policy for the state of Maryland. Now, I got a call today or an email today that said one agency head wanted to testify, but they were submitting a letter of information. Well, our practice on our committee is if you want to speak in favor or against or with amendments, you can testify, but not letters of information. I would only say, and I'd say this to the second floor, if you want to take a position, take a position. We gladly welcome, we encourage you to take a position and tell us what you think. Now, it means you might have to live with that position, but that's part of being involved in the electoral arena. So, I've said this before, but I don't want the younger members, the newer members, to think this is how things always have worked. We have relied on the agencies and the administrations, no matter what the party, to give us information so we can do an effective job. And I personally think it's an abdication of responsibility, and it hurts all of our work, whatever the party, when you don't get clear indication from what is easy to implement, what is impossible to implement, and what is a better way to implement. And I hope it's not too late to see a change in policy and practice from the second floor and all of the agencies, but it does a disservice to this chamber. Thank you, Mr. President. Our committee will meet at 1 p.m. today, Education, Health, and Environment, 1 p.m. At the conclusion of hearing, 15 minutes later, we will have a voting session.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair recognizes Chair of Budget and Tax.
Thank you, Mr. President. Budget and Tax will begin its hearings at 12:45 today. We have 20 bills. It's going to be a long day. And a complication because we also have scheduled a work group at 4 o'clock for sports betting. So those who are listening in, stay tuned. We may have to be nimble and try to figure out what we're going to do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good luck. Chair recognizes the Chair of Judicial Proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. President. Don't worry, he'll still finish well before we do. So, so we'll start off with we'll meet for a fiscal briefing at 1 o'clock. That'll be followed by bill hearings. That'll be followed by a voting session.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right. Other announcements. Select committees, delegations. If not, Chair recognizes the, Chair of the Baltimore County delegation.
Baltimore County delegation will meet 8:30 on Friday morning for one bill, and it will be brief.
Thank you, Senator. Any other delegation? Chair recognizes the Chair of the Baltimore City delegation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Baltimore City delegation will be meeting at 9 a.m. It's listed on Friday. It's listed on the MGA website. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any further delegation announcements? Chair recognizes the chair of the Prince George's County delegation. Nope, Rules Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to appeal to any individual who has a late file bill that's coming before the Rules Committee. I'm going to suggest that you come to talk with me about any bill that you would like for the Rules Committee to entertain. I really want to emphasize that. Please come to talk to the chair about any rule, any piece of legislation that's late that you would like for the Rules Committee to entertain. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to reiterate that point that this is a very challenging session. Everything is less efficient. So the Rules Committee, the chair of the Rules Committee is going to have a much more discerning view of rules, bills that are in rules. So please keep that in mind. Please make sure to speak. And when would that meeting be for the Rules Committee, Madam Chair?
Yes, I'm sorry. I meant to tell everyone that the Rules Committee will be meeting at 10:30 on Friday.
10:30 on Friday.
But please come to talk to the chair about any bill that you have that you would like for the Rules Committee to entertain. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Senator. All right, Chair, any further announcements, delegation announcements? Chair recognizes the chair of the Protocol Committee.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special presentation today. We usually do our birthdays. So I have permission to present the resolution? Or
Senator may proceed.
Yes. So bear with me. This will be a surprise. From the Senate of Maryland, resolution be it hereby known to all that the Senate of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to Nicole M. Sander, our Secretary of the Senate, in recognition of the celebration of your birthday. May this special day be filled with joy and happiness, surrounded by all who know and love you, and the entire membership extends its best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution to be presented to you actually today for tomorrow, the 25th of February 2021, and it's signed by William C. Ferguson IV, President of the Senate, and all of us join and wish you a very happy birthday. Thank you, Nicole, for all that you do.
Happy birthday, Nicole. If only all members could see the Secretary of the Senate, who was freaking out that there was a resolution that was was not ahead of time thought through. So we're so grateful for our Secretary of the Senate and for the entire team that keep us operating. We are so thankful. All right. Any further announcements for the good of the order? If not, let's do a quorum call before we adjourn.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence in the chamber? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 45 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until Friday, February 26th at 12 p.m.
Without objection, so ordered. Stay safe, wear your mask, get the vaccine.